Hello, everybody. Co-owner Om Gandhi here. Welcome one, welcome all to the audio edition of the Fireside Chats. For more stories like this, go to our website at runtrymag.com. That's runtrymag.com. You can also find us on Instagram at runtrymag, and you can also find us on Facebook at runtrybike. And now, on to the show.
One, two, three, four.
Shelly Vandevens, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate your time. Looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. And thank you, again, I know last time I saw you, I was like blazing through mile 19 at Ray Miller and like grabbed a potato and thanked you and kept going. So good seeing you again in like calmer circumstances.
Yeah, the same place we actually met a year ago, which is awesome.
Exactly. It's just our yearly reunion. We'll do it every year.
Yeah.
So Shelly,
Goodness.
for the audience, let them know who you are and what you do in the endurance sports world.
Yeah, so my name's Shelly. I live in San Diego and I run ultras. I've been doing distance running for 10 years now. Started off with half marathons and marathons, but now I am very full blown in trail running, ultra running. Yeah, so that's what I do.
So from half marathons and marathons that were on the road.
Yeah, so I had played soccer all growing up, was very competitive in that, and then one day woke up, didn't want to do college soccer, was burnt out, so I went into college and kind of did a couple months of just doing the college thing, and I needed to have a sport, so I trained for a half marathon. That was a Hollywood road half marathon, and then of course you do a half marathon, and everyone's question is like, when are you going to do a full marathon? So then I signed up for the Carlsbad full marathon, did that, and it just like sparked a fire or a demon, however you want to look at it. Kept doing more marathons, and then one day heard about ultra marathons. It was actually was watching a documentary on Badwater. That was actually what did it for me, and I was like, ooh, that's cool, I want to do that one day. So then it turned into how can I train for an ultra, and then that kind of sparked that.
Amazing. So what part, if you can recall, about the Badwater documentary got you interested? Because I've crewed at Badwater,
Okay.
and so I have experience there. So I'd love to hear, what was it that you were like, absolutely, that is what I want to venture into?
To me, it's pushing the human body to your absolute limit, right? So I think it's seeing if you can do something. And I think even more so, it's pushing yourself mentally to your absolute limit. So I just remember in the documentary, I think the guy was like throwing up on the side of the road, but I just remember having this thing of like, if you can make it through that and keep going, you can make it through anything in life, right? And I think we know as ultra runners, it's so metaphorical to like stuff we're all going to go through in our life of it's going to be fun and then it's not going to be fun, but you know what, if you push through it, it's going to be fun again. And so I think just seeing that and then adding in, like, I'm fascinated by hot weather. I love hot weather. So like there's that element of it. Obviously growing up in Southern California, Death Valley and the Sierras are very much home to me. So there's that element of it. But yeah, I think it was just seeing like in my mind, those people are kind of crazy. So I wanted to like be a part of that one day.
Yeah, what's crazy about going through Death Valley is at the end when you climb the Whitney Portal,
Yeah.
it's freezing up there. Like, it is such a drastic change. And I would say, pretty quickly, but it takes time to go up the mountain. So, you feel that temperature change, but it's an amazing experience. So for those of you who are interested in getting into ultras, that's definitely one to look at and really push your limits, as you say. What's the longest race that you've done so far in the ultra world?
So as of now, my longest race is a 50K. I've done a couple of those. Looked into other longer races, haven't ended up doing them. And then right now I'm in a month from today going to be doing my first 102K. So that will be my longest distance to date.
And it's not just any 102K. Let's unwrap this gift because it's pretty special. Where are you going to be going for this, next level?
So pretty stoked. It's a UTMB race. It's Tarawera, so it's out in New Zealand. I think for me, the cool part of ultras is just like you're combining nature with running, right? So road running, amazing, but to me, it's about like the feeling of running, the community, right? The people, those are all equally as amazing in road running, but something about being out in nature, right? You're like by yourself. You don't see anyone for 20 minutes. You're like, am I lost? Like, I love that whole aspect of it. And I think to be able to do that. I've never been to New Zealand. I spent a month living in Australia, and it was like one of the best months of my life. So I have this like love for that part of the world of just like the people, the outdoors, the culture, all of that. So to be able to see that part of the world on foot, like that's a gift in itself. So pretty excited just to be able to be around people at that race.
This is cart before the horse, but are you envisioning distances longer than 102K at this point?
Oh yeah, 100%.
So
yeah, we got a 100-mile plan, and then Badwater's actually in my like plan. So I'd like to have like a couple years of doing other 100-mile races before I ask my body to do that at 120. But those are all very much, and then like Moab's kind of sparked something, very much all in the plan.
I love it.
If you don't mind me asking, what is your process for choosing races? Do they sort of just call out to you? Is it the locations? Is it kind of like you said, the experiences? Like, how did you choose Tarawera, and how do you choose your races?
You know, I could be called impulsive in my life, where I like see something and I get excited, and then like I tunnel vision on it, which I think a lot of runners do, right? Like we're excited people. So I think it's just what calls to my gut, right? Like what you kind of see and really, really excites you. So like Ray Miller, my first ultra, I fell in love with trail running in the Santa Monica Mountains. So it was like, what better way than to run my first ultra, like 2 hours from my home in the mountains of Malibu. Australia, I have like a significant love for it just as the place itself. So being able to run a race in that area, I had heard about Tarawera through years of just like following different ultra runners, seeing their experience there, seeing the terrain. So I think that was a big part of it. For me, it's very much about the community, the people, and the terrain. So if I can get those three things together, and then obviously if you can get some good Burton mileage, then that makes it more fun.
Designed for running adventures on a variety of surfaces, the Katula Exo Spikes footwear traction are at home on ice and snow, as well as on dry, rocky ground. 12 ultra-durable tungsten carbide spikes provide an impressive amount of grip when you need it, and stand up to rocks and other abrasive trail features when you don't. Exo Spikes will inspire you to follow the trail less traveled, even when it's covered in ice. For more information, visit Katula.com.
Shelly, talk to us a little bit about the journey to this running, and not just the 102K, but you know what you've had to overcome in the most recent past to get to this point, because it's a phenomenal story.
Yeah, so I grew up very, very active, played competitive soccer my whole life, traveled around doing that. I mean, that was pretty much my childhood, was like every weekend, every night, was kind of, there's multiple years I wanted to become a professional soccer player. That was actually my goal in life. And then one day just woke up and didn't have the same love for it. I remember seeing other women on my team, and it was a very competitive team, and they had this just fire about it for them, and I didn't have it. So I quit the next day. Gave up what I was going to do end of high school and college, went to college, started doing road running, did a half marathon, a full marathon, and then I decided to simultaneously train for the Boston Marathon and my first ultra at the same time. So I started running just really high mileage, no coach, no strength training, no mobility work. In that same year, I also went through like a very, very traumatic loss, something I had never experienced and was not myself for a year. So I started not eating the way that I should have. I was doing intermittent fasting, which in reality meant eating like a meal at like 3 p.m. and a meal at 5 p.m. and that was it. So my body wasn't getting fuel. That worked for a while. And after a year, one day, my body just had enough. I was on a run one day, and it was actually a 1-year anniversary from the loss I had gone through. So strangely enough, it was like those feelings were all in my head. And I just remember getting this like 12 out of 10 debilitating nerve pain down my leg. And it's something that like I don't wish on my worst enemy. It was just like went from feeling fine to just like drop to the ground sobbing. I had to get a ride home. It was in that moment I knew something was terribly wrong. And that started the trail of 17 different medical professionals to try to figure out what was wrong with me. We went to physical therapists, did the 8 weeks, that didn't do anything, went back to the MD, did a spine MRI and x-ray. We went to like inner healer, that wasn't doing anything. I tried going to different PTs because they all had different theories, right? So you go to one, it's not working. It's like, oh, it's like your glute, it's your back, it's your hip. In this time, initially it was a lower left back problem, but if you continue to I was continuing to try to run, right? So I couldn't walk, but I would go out and try to go for runs. So I'm like, my right leg is pretty much dragging and I'm still trying to like run, and then I would fall and sob. It was not very pretty for anyone to watch. And so I would go to another physical therapist, and then that would just cause more problems. Like my right hip went out. At some point, 7 months into it, I developed like bilateral nerve issues on both legs because I had had nerve compression for so long. So now like pretty much from my hip down to my foot, if any like sensory thing would go near my leg, it would just fire off nerve signals. At this point, they start thinking it's an autoimmune problem. So we start doing just like all the blood work you can possibly imagine. You can imagine the response when it was all coming back negative too, right? Because at this point, I had been to 3 MDs, and by the third one, they were convinced it was in my head. So now they're trying to get me on all sorts of anxiety medication, which that's great if that's what you need. But I was like, if this is anxiety, I'd be running, right? Like that's what I do for anxiety. So they were trying to get that. I went and ended up at Stanford and like they did all these different tests, same thing. It was like, we can put you on anxiety medication. We don't really know what's wrong with you. So that went on for 2 years. It was 2 years that I couldn't use the bathroom on my own. I couldn't turn the shower on my own. I would be lying if I said that I wasn't trying to run during the time. So it would be like, I would go on this like 10-mile walk run where I'd be just like dragging myself, and then I wouldn't be able to move for 3 weeks. And then I would do the same thing 3 weeks later. In that time, I was still not really addressing like any of the actual problems, right? It wasn't like I was trying to strength train or do mobility work or eat more or any of that. It was just like, you know, they say like the definition of insanity is in doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And I think me in those 2 years, like, was the definition of insanity. Was I insane? No, but was I doing that cycle 100%? I tried sports psychologists where they'd be like, visualize yourself strong, and I would like visualize myself strong and still have the same problem. That didn't work either. And so it was just, yeah, it was, you know, at the time I also didn't have health insurance because I had just turned 25. So I had gone off of my parents' health insurance and was like, oh, I'm young, I'm healthy, I run, I'll be fine. And then the injury was like a month later. So that wasn't like prime timing, and like no one thought it would go on very long, right? We all thought it'd be like 2 weeks of PT. At this point, none of my MDs would request any PT either. So I couldn't get into any physical therapy. So yeah, that went on for 2 years. And one night I like absolutely cried myself to sleep. I remember it very, very well. It was actually January of 2021. And it was like, I think January 7th or 8th. So exactly like almost 2 years ago today. And I just remember I was never like a person that really struggled like as much in mental health as I was in those 2 years. And I just remember not wanting to be on this earth. It's like, I also work on my feet. I work with dogs. I train service dogs. So I couldn't work either. I just felt like useless to the world. And I felt very misunderstood because no one knew what was wrong with me. And I, that night, reached out to Sally McRae and actually sent her an email and was like, hey, this is my situation. Like, can you help me? Please help me.
Did you know Sally beforehand, or was this sort of like a cold call sales pitch?
Cold call. It was like an email to like her admin email on her website. So cold call, never seen her, never met her. I had followed her for a little bit, but it wasn't even like I had followed her for that long of a period of time. Like, she's incredible by all means, but I just like hadn't really been on like, hadn't followed a lot of professional athletes for a long time. And so it was just one of those things where everything I saw, it was just like strength, right? You can do anything. Like, all of her message is very much about like being strong and resilient. And it was like, okay, like maybe someone like that can like do something to help me. So I sent her an email, and it was like, gosh, I don't even want to look back to see what I said, but I like wasn't in a good headspace. I was like very upset. The next day I got an email back. It was like 6 o'clock in the morning. So we're talking like an 8-hour turnaround time. And it was like, hey, I can talk to you today. Went on the phone with her, talked to her for 2 hours. In those 2 hours, I like poured my heart out, like all my history, everything, and she agreed to coach me. So that was like January of 2 years ago. Within 2 or 3 months, she had me believing that I would run again. So she had me doing these walk runs, doing all this strength, trying to build my body stronger. There was still something obviously wrong, but I was getting to a point where like I was actually feeling like I could be stronger. Go ahead.
So had there been the conversation with the 17th doctor
No.
before the Sally? So Sally McRae before doctor number 17.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she came in and I told her, I'm like, hey, like all these people, and within those 17, I should say, I think about 10 of them told me I should never run or would never run again, right? So I was getting that from like many of them, like, hey, like your body's just messed up, like whatever it is you're doing. None of them had asked questions they probably should have asked, like, hey, have you undergone trauma lately? Like, are you eating? Like very basic things, right? But instead it was like, oh, we don't know what's wrong with you. You should, like, I remember the doctor at Stanford, I won't say his name, but told me like, hey, maybe you switch and do the elliptical, you know, and it's just like, no, like I want to be outside, right? I want to be with my friends. Like you don't understand. Yeah. So she was, when I reached out to her, it was like, hey, I haven't run in almost 2 years. I am like mentally a wreck. I feel like I'll never run again. Can you help me, please? And so she immediately agreed. It wasn't even Coach, to mentor me. So we would talk on the phone for an hour every week. And like, she really helped through like some pretty serious, like personal stuff in my life, getting me to a point where I believed I could run. And then she connected me with her friend, who's also her physical therapist, which is Professional Physical Therapy in Whittier. And I will like gloat for them all day long. She convinced them to give me an appointment. I lived in the Bay Area at the time, so Northern California. They're in Southern California. So I drove down from San Jose to Whittier, California, so Southern California, to get an appointment with this physical therapist. Within 30 minutes of looking at me, she knew what was wrong with me. My pelvis was up and tilted forward. So we're basically talking about not just like a little anterior tilt, right? But it was completely anterior tilted. My left side was, I think, 2 inches higher than my right side. So it's just like, which is great and all, but then all the kinetic chain injury. So that was compressing a nerve in my back, but now my hips hike, right? All these other things. So she did like a manual adjustment, gave me stuff to do. Long story short, 1 month later, I was running. And then 6 months later, ran my first ultra, like placed at my first ultra. And now we're at like a year and a half later from that. And I'm running between 100 and 130 miles a week, no problems. What was that?
I said that's amazing.
That is super amazing.
Just wild. I mean, yeah, those people are the best people.
So the issue with your hips and the alignment and leaning forward, was that caused by an incident, or is that just something that happened over the course of your time, whether it be, you know, training dogs, running on the road? Like, how did that come about? Were they able to diagnose that?
Yeah. So you have your psoas muscle, right? Which we always talk about as like the deep hip flexor. It's the only muscle that combines upper body to lower body, right? And your psoas muscle is also where you hold all of your cortisol. So when you undergo, or when someone undergoes traumatic events, that clenches, right? So it's where all your flight or fight is held. So likely with me, we had a mixture of like traumatic event that caused PTSD for 2 years. And mine was just clenching, right? And then I'm not doing any of the back, which we all go through things, right? We all have stuff in our life that is tough. But the idea is then you stretch, you do strength training, you do all the other things. But I was doing that. And I visibly will look at like videos of myself from like walking, running in that time. And I was like hunching over. So over time, that just pulled me into this hunch position. And I didn't do anything to correct it. And then you add that with like severely underfueling. We're talking like 800 calories a day underfueling, running 20 miles, right? And like that was just the catalyst of like your body's trying so hard for you and it's just not happening.
I mean, that's amazing. And I think, you know, for those of you who are listening to this, like, understand that, you know, you need to take care of your body and pay attention to all the signals that it is giving you throughout time. You know, I know for me, one of the things that I tend to do, even when I'm standing, is hunching forward. And so just working on making sure I straighten my self up just so that I can have that alignment and avoid those injuries that take time to develop, right? For lack of a better phrase, and wind up taking you, you know, 16, 17 doctors before you're like, okay. Talk about in having to go see that number of doctors, 16, 17, finally advocating for yourself or advocating for yourself the entire time, but a little bit more about the mental side of it too, because if people keep saying to you, nothing is wrong, you should be fine. Like, how do you manage that on the mental side? The physical side we discussed, but how do you manage that on the mental side?
I mean, full transparency, I broke. I absolutely broke in that time. It was, I think the hardest thing that a lot of people can feel is not being understood, right? Not being seen, not being heard. And in those 2 years, I didn't, like, I will genuinely say Sally was the first person in that time I felt like seen and heard me, right? Because I had some awesome people in my life, but they didn't have the same love for running, right? So they would give me the, like, well, at least it's not X, at least it's not Y, right? Like, they give you the, like, your situation, you could have 6 months to live. And it's like, I understand that, but this is like my reality and my world and what I'm dealing with. So I think I would get that from amazing, awesome people, but that wouldn't really help what I was feeling in that moment. And then within, like, you know, I didn't have, it's funny because before my injury, I didn't really have a running community, right? I ran by myself all the time. It was like, I'd go to my little road races by myself and leave by myself. And then, like, you have this amazing transformation of, like, after that, I would say, like, the 30 people in my life I'm closest to are, like, because of the endurance community. So that's been another gift of this, right? Because I just realized, like, how much those people understand me. So I think, yeah, it was very much this feeling of, like, I felt crazy. I very much did. I didn't feel seen. I didn't feel heard. I felt hopeless in the moment. And I would say, I remember in my email to Sally, I think I used the word broken 4 times. That was just, like, how I looked at myself as, like, weak, fragile, and broken, you know, versus, like, strong, powerful, and resilient, which is how I look at myself now.
That's amazing. For those of you that are just joining us, my name is Jason Bahamundi. I'm the founder of Run Try Bike. I'm being joined by co-owner Om Gandhi and Shelly Vandevens, Ultrarunner, who just went through in detail her journey from 2019 through to today, having visited 17 doctors all along the way, and sending for what, lack of a better term, is a cold sales pitch to Sally McRae to be a mentor, friend, and coach, and is preparing to be racing in New Zealand in 1 month from now at a UTMB race, Tarawera, which is 102K. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly.
I don't think any of us have.
We'll just throw what we can at it.
As long as we're all pronouncing it incorrectly consistently.
I hope they're not watching this.
Yeah. Well, I will be racing a UTMB race at the end of April, and it's the Canyons, which is a lot easier to pronounce. So I'm in the clear.
Be a new race criteria. You have to be able to pronounce it. You know.
So tell me about the first Ray Miller that you did and what that experience is like, especially after this 2-year journey. Just what the overall experience was like pre-race, like during the race, post-race. Like, I personally know some of it, but it's a great story, and I think everyone should hear it.
Yeah, I think if I could start off, best day of my life, hands down. I've had some really good days, great memories, all of that, but just the feeling of, I remember going into it, and it was my mom, actually. She was like, "Why are you doing this? Like, don't do this." And I remember looking at her and I'm like, I want to see if I can do it. So going into it.
Before you continue, I just wanted to let everybody know this is not your run-of-the-mill 50K. This is a 50K in the Santa Monica Mountains that's very rugged. I think it's like 6,000 feet of gain.
Wow.
It's definitely not, you know, a 50K I would sign up for as my first 50K, but it is a beautiful and stunning race. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, so when I started training, I basically had, I remember I wanted to do a race in 2021, right? I wanted, like, that. I'm like, this is my year. I'm like going to get back from running. And I remember her being like, okay, we're going to have like 5 months to do it. Like, are you sure you want to do it this year? Just like from a training perspective, right? Like, maybe we have a little more time from you going to not being able to run for 2 minutes to running a 50K, like maybe a little bit more time. And it was like, no, I want to do it. And like, she being the rad person she is, like, supported me through that and was like, all right, we're going to do it, you know? And so training through that was very much like a mix of trying to train properly, but also trying to, like, not wreck myself after not running for 2 years, right? So being very mindful of, like, actually listening to my body. If I feel something, I don't do that. I had to become really diligent with fueling, which was hard for me. Like I said, I had been eating very, very little for 2.5, 3 years of my life. Had to give up the intermittent fasting, which is one of the best things I've ever done. I'm not a dietitian, but it didn't work for me. So it wasn't something like for my body, whether it's being a female or my level of activity, to run at 5 o'clock in the morning and then not eat until 2 p.m. in the afternoon, just like wasn't working well. So I would like not be able to, like, I'd like black out and be like, oh, this is funny, I wonder why. And then, like, you know, that was probably why. And so that was, again, the insanity cycle, right? We're seeing a trend. And so it basically was like in October, I started being able to actually run like 2-3 times a week, did the whole training plan, right? That was all by Sally. And then leading up to it, it was just this like immense excitement, obviously, with like all these emotions of like, this has been a dream for 4 years and like, you're going to go do it. The race itself was like incredible. The entire time I was just fighting demons in my head of like, when I used to run, I used to like suffer like panic attacks because I'd be scared of the pain coming back. And that's something that I've been able to get past. But at that time, I would say 2 out of 3 runs, I would like start hyperventilating because I'd be so scared of it happening again. I'm like, you're going to get hurt, you're weak, you're fragile, and you're not going to run for 2 years. So during that run, I remember having a couple moments where I would fight that and feel that, but moved past it. I made like 8 friends that day who are still friends to this day. Just like the community immediately, just like, I remember being on the start line, like waiting and just feeling like I was going to throw up. And a couple of the women from Ultra Reds in San Diego, like came up to me and were like, hey, like, who are you? Are you good? And I think they just saw me like pale white. But yeah,
Was it Izzy? Was it Izzy?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
she
was
really
Izzy
does
and
sound
Liz.
like that too.
They like came up to me and they saw me just like pacing around. Like I don't think I looked well at all. Looking back, and then Kira, the race director, came over and like gave me a little side hug, like you're okay, you know. And so I did that race, and about a tenth of a mile from the finish, I ate it, as many of us do in our. It was like you could see the finish, right? They're all cheering for you. I think a lot of people saw it. I ate it, so I like covered in blood. I finished this full on glory, and I start sobbing, right? Like all the emotion of like, you freaking did it. Like you are like, you're resilient, you're incredible. And then like, I remember the little EMT guy coming up to me and thinking that I'm sobbing because of my knee. And I'm like, no, I'm just emotional. And so he like takes me into the tent because they think I need stitches at the time. And I'm like, just let me like feel this in this moment. But yeah, I would say if I could describe it in one word, it was euphoric. It was just like the best feeling I've ever had in my life, of not only realizing like, this is what I like truly love, the thing I truly love to do, but then also just like feeling this power in myself of like, if I can do this, I can do anything. Like if I did this the last 2 years of my life and I am like now an ultra runner, right? I remember like, it was Sally actually like saying those words, like you're an ultra runner now. And that just like hit something in me. And yeah, that's changed how I live every aspect of my life. I think, you know, we can be relentless in things and have like full passion for things and know that we're capable of anything, then like we can get through anything. And I feel like I learned that day.
And
Correct.
and you know, like just wanted to bring this up, just so everybody knows what's been like what's been up recently, but like, you know, like that race almost set the precedence for your 2022. Like, you know, 2022 was, like you said in one of your posts, your first injury-free year since, I believe, 2017. You ran, I think, over 3,000 miles. You podiumed a few races. Just tell me how that race kind of like created this forward momentum, and just tell me kind of how 2022 has felt for you and how that sets the precedence for 2023.
Yeah, it definitely did. I think it was me realizing to put my energy into like the things I love, things I'm passionate about. But I think even more than that, realizing like we can do hard things, right? And I remember like one of my goals for the year, and I'm not big on resolutions, but we can always have goals, right? We can always be changing those, was like, I'm going to make this year injury free. And whatever that looks like, if that means like, there was 2 weeks in March I didn't run at all those 2 weeks, because it was just like I had done multiple races in a row and I just felt my body was tired, right? Like I was like sleeping more. I didn't feel 100%. And in the past, I would have been like, shut up, body, we're going to keep running. And instead it was like, no, I'm going to be kind to you. Maybe we'll like ride a bike, do the whole Peloton thing. Like that was those 2 weeks. And so I think a big thing was like being more intuitive with how I feel about things versus feeling like my brain always knows what to do. So yeah, I think it was also going with my gut on things. So all the races I did in 2022 were all just like gut feelings on races. So like, this looks fun for this reason. Like this is with these friends, so I want to do it. It was all just about like enjoying the love of running versus trying to do X or Y. And then as far as 2023, I think it's like, okay, so now I did 3,500 miles in an injury-free year. Like, well, now can I do 100K at a time or 100 miles at a time or go for a BQ? Like, I think now I'm kind of gearing into like seeing how far can I actually push myself in one event.
Did you say that you placed at the Ray Miller?
It was I did third in my age and then eighth overall.
Okay. So that leads me to this question. When you were out there, right, first race back, you're performing well. Did you know how well you were performing? And if you did, was that what spurred you on? Or was it the idea that this is my first race back and I feel great and I'm just going to keep running?
You know, the unique thing about Ray Miller is the first like 2 miles is this like 1,200-foot climb. So you basically get barreled into the single track. I had so much anxiety. I just like bolted at the start, right? Like the last thing you should do, right? I'm not saying any coach ever told me to go red line my first 2 miles, but I did. And then like all the hill training I had done, which like, again, thank you, Sally, for that. I like got to the top and I was like, I feel good. I should just keep this output, right? So now I've like put out an output for the first 2 miles. And I think just like the strength it takes to like go to 17 doctors over 2 years and not have answers and move forward to that and run again, like running an ultra is nothing compared to that, you know? And I think we all know that in our personal lives, right? Like those are the hard things, not like running's easy, life's hard. That's what I always think about, you know? Yeah. And so I think it was like that pushed me, and then it was like I just want to maintain this. And if I'm honest, I was just like star power the entire time. I was just having a good time, and it for me it's never been like, oh, I want to try to do well at this race. It's just I want to see what my body can do.
So do you have goals for Tarawera in a month from now?
Definitely I want to go sub 15 hours to get a lottery ticket for Western States. That's been a big goal. So I think I want to finish my first 102K, so I don't want to go out and try to run like a 7-minute mile for 100. Like it's not going to work. So I'm obviously humble in the sense of like I know I have no business trying to hold a certain pace in a race like that. But I definitely want to go sub 15.
What's the elevation gain at that event?
I don't want to be wrong. I think it's like 8 or 9. I think it's 8 or 9.
Okay, so a lot less than Ray Miller on a per mile basis.
I didn't think about that. Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, I mean, because
maybe I do go for it. This is good advice. I'm gonna blame you if I bonk at mile 62. I'm gonna be like, "Hey, Jason told me to."
Well, and anybody who knows me will tell you my motto is all gas and no brakes. So I'm who's like, yeah, I'm gonna go for it, and if things fall apart, they fell apart. I gave it all I had, you know. It is what it is. I did the bike leg at the 70.3 in Indian Wells, and for like the first, I don't know, half the race, 30 miles, I was averaging like 21, 22 miles an hour, and I think the back half I was averaging like 13. Like I couldn't even put pedals. I was like, just walk, I'd be going a lot faster. So go for it.
It's more fun. I think I hate to admit I have a quote on my wall, but I do, and it was like, if you think you have things under control, you're not going fast enough. And it's like I see it every morning in my office, and it's so dangerous for me to look at, but it's so true. So
I think we've all had a race where we've come out like too fast, and it's just like one of those like memes where it's like, oh, like, you know, when you see the finish line and you've been walking for the last 20 miles and then you just power through.
It's so much more fun that way, though. You know, you're like, I did it my all. Like, I can't feel anything, but here we are.
So I forget. Remind me who wrote "Running on the Edge" for us? Was it Christy?
Oh, Running on the Edge. That was Christy Palmer. Yeah.
So she wrote an article for us called "Running on the Edge," and I think for me, that's the way I have to participate in events. Is okay, I'm going hard. I know my heart rate is sky high. Training tells me to be able to hold this, but let's see what happens, right? And go for it. Go for broke. Great things might come of it. And honestly, like I tell some of the athletes I coach, you'll have a great story if you blow up. It's okay. They both work.
High risk, high reward. You know, that's how I live my life.
So you mentioned qualifying for Western States. You mentioned Boston qualifying as well. Give us some of the events that are on your bucket list, the things that you want to do or have to do, you know, for yourself.
I mean, not with getting carried away, but Western States 100%, I think it's on all of our lists, right? That's kind of an easy one. definitely Mount Blanc as well. Badwater's on my plan, but I see it more as like a 5 to 7 year plan, just because I recognize like I need years and years of running before I go to anything like that. Also need to find people that are okay with curring me in that. So that's going to take like years of like, all right, we got one. We got two. All right, we go next year. Next year I'll apply. No. So that's kind of like, that's definitely on my plan. Getting a BQ has been a goal just because when I got injured, I was trying to get one. So I think now I'm at a point where my heart isn't in road races, but I'm very stubborn in life, or passionate, however we want to look at it. And so for me, I'm like, I feel like I have to do that at some point, even though like loved ones will say you don't have to do it. I feel like I need to. So I'm looking, I think, like I'm doing like the LA marathon just for fun, but that's 2 weeks post 102K. So I recognize it's probably not the BQ race for me. So I think CIM at the end of the year, I might try to go for one and then just try to do it the following year. But I would say, yeah, Mount Blanc, Western States, Badwater are kind of like the 3 ones that I know are like in my longer term plan.
So Jamil, Corey just joined us. Is Cocodona on your list for long courses after your 100-milers?
I mean, I think
125.
That's right.
with ultras is like, so once you do it right, you either need to go do it better or you need to do more, right? Like those are kind of the, like that was my whole thing with Ray Miller this past year. Is I'm like, I want to do it as a training race for Tarawera, but I have to PR my time, right? I can't go slower than last year. And I like, no one should take my advice, but my point is like, I know myself very well. So I could see doing the 100-miler, and like in my mind right now, I'm like, then you're done, right? But like reality says no, then I'm going to want to do like the 200, and then yeah. So I could very much see that happening. Yeah. So,
I mean, the big name races are out there. Locally, what's a race that you would talk about that you would say for people that are in where I'm at in Phoenix and Southern California, that it's a race that, you know, get to Southern California to do because of X, Y, and Z?
You know, I'll probably do Ray Miller every year for the rest of my life. That will always have a special place in my heart. The race director, Kira, is like an incredible human being. She was so nice to me my first time and made me feel so welcomed. So I think that's one where you're running up in the mountains with an ocean view the entire time. Like, how do you beat that? It's all single track. It's not technical. It's all runnable. So I think that's one that I'll consistently do just for fun and to try to keep PRing. You're laughing, but we'll continue. So I would say that's a big one. A lot of the ones in the LA area are like these loops, which I know people like like to just run in circles for like 4 days straight.
Yeah.
I'm not that insane. So I think for me, I'm like, I want to see stuff while I run. I don't want to just like see what happens when I run on a hamster wheel for 4 days. But power to you. So yeah, I think that's definitely one. And then I definitely want to do either like San Diego 100 or a run. I do a lot of my training out in like the Laguna Mountains of San Diego. So I think doing a race out there would be cool.
I laugh because you said that Ray Miller is runnable, yet no more than 5 minutes ago it was 6,000 feet of elevation, 30 miles. Like, those two don't add up.
I mean, the hills are the best part, you know. I remember filling out like a sheet for like my coach, and it was like your favorite running workout, and it was hill repeats. That's what I put down. And she was like, are you good? You know, like it just like for me, I love like you're running up a hill, right? We're not going to go into like that song or anything, but just what more powerful feeling than literally running up a hill, and then like at that point your heart rate spikes, and then you just bomb down it. I mean, so I love the elevation. I think I do better with elevation than running flat. I don't have leg turnover to run 4-minute miles. I never will. But if it's a hill, then I can pass those people on my grade adjusted pace.
Yeah, well, said when in doubt, run the hillier route. I mean, you get stronger, and so that when you get to the flat or the ability to run downhill, you actually have the ability to do both at a pace you probably didn't think about being able to do.
Exactly.
For those of you that are just joining us, my name is Jason Bahamundi. I'm the founder of Run Try Bike. We're being joined by co-owner Om Gandhi and Shelly Vandevens, Ultrarunner, who just took us through her running journey. You'll be able to read about it in full detail in our next digital magazine, which is being dropped on January 15th. And the only place to get it is through our newsletter. So after this conversation is over, go to the link in our bio on Instagram, subscribe to our newsletter, or go to our website, runtrymag.com, and subscribe to our newsletter there. Shelly, thank you so much for joining us. Before we let you off the hook, we're going to have some fun with some questions that we call rapid fire, but take your time to answer them. And if you get ridiculous reactions from me, just keep talking because I find these questions to be the ones that draw the most emotion out of me.
All right. Fair enough.
We'll start simply. When you run, podcast, music, or nothing at all?
Usually nothing, occasionally music if I just really want to feel something, but I'm a kind of, I want to like hear myself breathe kind of person.
Absolutely. But when you do choose music, what kind of music are you listening to and your favorite artist in that genre?
You know, I would, if I had to go like one immediate, it would be NF. He's like, he gets the angry side of me and I'm not an angry person. So it allows me to feel angry for like a couple hours of my life. It's good.
All right. So this is going to determine whether or not you have me and Ohm on your Badwater crew or just Ohm.
Okay. All right.
Pineapple on pizza, yay or nay?
Yes.
Okay. Ohm, you're all on and I'm out.
Oh man. I mean, fruit, you got to eat fruit on everything, right? It's like so sweet.
Fruit.
Fruit 100%.
Why do you need to add more fruit to your fruit?
Don't you want you could have every food group in one piece of food. That's the best food in the world, right? You've got like your bread, your vegetable, dairy, like everything in one piece of food.
Yeah,
Well, she's got a point.
Really good. I will argue all day long.
You don't need to add anything to perfection. That's how I look.
But we can always do better, right? We can never be perfect, but we can always be better.
Pizza is perfect.
Why are you striving for perfect? No, there's no perfection. It doesn't exist. It's just getting better than you were yesterday.
If you're going to eat pizza, there are 3 styles that I will recognize, and really only one of them counts. New York, Chicago, or Detroit. Which style pizza are you eating?
All the same?
No. Like, New York is...
I'm distracted by the pineapple, right? I just care about what's on top of it.
So, sorry for those of you in Chicago. That's a tomato soup bowl, right? It's like a deep dish tomato soup bowl. Detroit style has cheese that's melted on the side, and it's like a square. And then New York style is the thin, flat crust that you can fold.
We go Chicago. I know. We were hitting it off. We were doing well, and now I feel like we're just going downhill. I want like bread and like sauce. I mean, if there's no bread, then like, what am I? I'm just eating like sauce with cheese.
Right. In which case, that's bread with sauce.
That's wonderful, right?
I'm with you on that.
I'm just like, all I need in my life is like bread and vegetables, and I could live off of it. So don't go to me for dietary advice. Yeah. So Chicago with pineapple would be my order.
Oh. I'm totally caught flat-footed now in this conversation. I don't even know where to.
No, you gotta just divert. Just
candy corn. Is that a real candy or is it candle wax masquerading as candy?
Candle wax.
All right. I'm back on the crew.
Back on the crew. All right.
Peeps. Is that a real candy or is it just gross?
I would say gross.
Yes.
I'm kind of picky. Okay.
We've had people tell us that they like Peeps, but they enjoy them when they're stale. And I'm like, so you eating rocks? Like, I don't understand.
Well, hey, don't forget,
I like touching them, but I don't want to eat them. If that's weird, right? Like they feel fun, but I don't know what to put inside your mouth. I don't know.
What about cherry eggs? Those ones that have like that milky thing in the middle.
Wait, they're like chocolate with the milk?
Yeah, it's like chocolate outside, and then you break it up, and it actually looks like an egg yolk.
No,
but it's just.
No, I can't do it. I can't do it.
All right, we're back. We're back.
The textures, Now we're getting into some texture. I don't know if they're phobias, but I can't do it.
What about circus peanuts? Yay or nay?
I mean, if the occasion calls for it, right? Like if I'm at a circus, but like.
No, circus peanuts.
I can have a contingency.
Yep.
Okay.
Orange things that are like in the cellophane pack that you get at like the gas stations. Your grandmother probably had them on a candy dish.
Where it came from, I probably am passing.
Yeah, they're like styrofoam. They're like orange colored styrofoam. They're terrible.
Feeling like you don't like them, yeah.
Terrible.
No,
Never.
Pass.
Red velvet, is it a flavor, an actual flavor, or is it just chocolate cake with red dye?
chocolate cake with red dye. I do like it, but chocolate cake red dye.
Yeah. So you're hitting a home run. We're back in
We're
the
back.
we're back
We're
in the
like 5 out of 6. That's like, I'd say a 90%.
the band's back together.
Back. All right.
When you're
Good.
out racing, would you prefer to be the hunter or to be hunted?
I mean, I love the chase, but I feel like it's almost more fun to get away, right? Like, yeah, I'd say hunted. I wouldn't hunt either. So, yeah. Yeah, we'll go hunted.
What's your favorite book?
Oh, oof. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I have to go David Goggins' first book. We're going down this route, but yeah, Can't Hurt Me. Can't Hurt Me would be the favorite. That stuff has messed me up. I think I've read it twice and listened to it once.
That's impressive. Like, to be able to put something on repeat, you really have to like it to that extent.
I mean, I think just in like little moments, I'll feel like, "Are you weak?" And then I hear him like yelling, and I'm like, "All right, no, I don't know."
So from an entertainment standpoint, are you a TV or movie person?
You know, I don't really watch TV or watch movies. I know that's weird, but I just don't sit still very often. So I'm not big on either. To be fair, I did do film in college, so that's weird. But we can all change, I guess. So I would say TV, right? Because you get to do something and then you get to do it again and again and again. Versus the movie, it's like you do it once and then even if you really like the movie, it's over.
Yeah, that's true. So
Yeah.
what's your TV show? What's the TV show you'd go back to?
I mean, if I'm not even giving it thought, I would say Office. I'm a big comedy person, and that's the only one I've watched multiple times.
Gotcha. Yeah. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Shelly. I can't wait to share your story in our upcoming digital magazine, which again, folks, drops on January 15th, and you can only get it through our newsletter. Shelly, let people know where they can find you and how they can track you in 1 month from now when you're down in New Zealand.
Yeah, I am Shelly Vandevens on Instagram, Strava, super unique, I know, first name, last name. But that is where you can find and follow me.
Awesome. We look forward to following your journey on race day and can't wait to cheer you on as you're out there, multiple time zones away, but we'll be loud enough for you to hear us.
Appreciate you all, and I will hold you to your offer to crew me at Badwater one day. So just so you're aware.
I've always,
On video record.
after
Now we
crewing,
have video of this.
I've said it before, after crewing it, I have no desire to actually run it myself, but on a crew side, I will absolutely do it for anybody who needs help. It's an awesome experience.
Good to know.
You too, yeah.
Have a great night. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.